Hello, hello. We're back with another recipe that we are going to put in the pressure canner. Make some food that is shelf stable, some grab and go food even. This is going to be burrito in a jar. That sounds yummy, doesn't it? So, some of the things that go into the burrito in a jar is going to be our pinto beans, which I've washed and rinsed. I have 2 types of peppers here, but I'm not going to put a whole lot of the green in. More of the colored peppers. We have our diced onions, our Rotel tomatoes there, yeah, taco seasoning. And you can buy it store-bought or you can make your own. Whatever you like in your Mexican food is good for taco seasoning. And on the stove, I have a pot of beef bouillon going. I love this, the Knorr's. This one is actually made in Canada. You can get it on Amazon. Not as many bad ingredients as some of the ones that you get here in the States. Sad to say, but yeah, that's how it goes. Also, I'm doing a little cheat. I went to Aldi's yesterday and they had rotisserie pulled pork. So I got a couple of those. So we're gonna cheat with that. That way I didn't have to roast my own. And it actually tastes really good. I've tried a little bit of it here. So I'm gonna be canning in quart jars. So the measurements I give you are gonna be for quarts. You could double the measurements if you're, I'm going to be doing pints. You can double the measurements if you're gonna be doing quarts. Okay, so I have already sterilized my jars. I've got them sitting next to me with the hot water still in them. I just took them out of my canner. I keep the water in them until I get ready to put my ingredients in there so it keeps them nice and warm. You always want to put warm jars back into a warm canner. And we will be putting very hot bouillon in here too. So even though I'm putting some cold ingredients in, it's still all going to be warm by the time it hits the canner. So I dump out the water as I get ready to do our measurements. So first thing we're going to put in here is 1/4 of a cup of the pinto beans. So let me get my quarter measure out. And I'm just going to do one of them on camera, one full one on camera, and then I'll go do the rest of them without you, bring you back when we do the next step. So we got our pinto beans going in, and then we have our rice also. I forgot to show you the rice, and this is a local grown rice from Cahokia, Illinois. And the thing about this rice is this is really good for people who have blood sugar problems, diabetes, whatever, or are watching your carbs. This is a high protein rice, and it's local. Love it. So let me get this opened up, and of course it's sealed, so let me get my seal broke here. I vacuum seal everything. Woo, that had a good seal on it. So rice, we're gonna do 1/8 of a cup of rice. So I got my 1/8 of a cup. And the thing with rice in canning, you don't want to put too much because it will swell. So 1/8 of a cup of rice, 2.5 tablespoons of onions. Now I happen to really like onions, so I don't know, I might want more than that, but we're gonna do 2 tablespoons right now and see what it looks like there. That's 1. And 2 tablespoons of onions. All right, we'll see what it looks like. If I feel like I need to add a little bit more onion, I will. 2.5 tablespoons of peppers. So I'm gonna put, oh, and that was 2.5 tablespoons of onions. Let's put a few more onions in there. And that's 1, 2, and then I'm gonna put 1/2 of the green. Makes it colorful. Next thing we're gonna put in is our meat. So it's 1/2 cup of meat. Let me get my 1/2 cup measure out here. There it is. Now pack it down in that. And my hands are very clean. And 1/2 cup. There we go. Okay. Next thing we're going to put in is our taco seasoning. And it is 1/2 tablespoon of taco seasoning. Okay. Next, they're saying 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I tell you what, I'm gonna leave the salt out. We don't like things real salty, and the bouillon will have a little salt to it. So I'm gonna leave that out. Next thing I'm gonna put in is 2 tablespoons of Rotel. Grab my tablespoon here. They're magnetic and they want to stick. Okay, so a little piece of onion left on there. 2 tablespoons of Rotel. One. Drop the little piece there. And I'm putting heaping because I like it. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to fill it with broth to the 1-inch headspace. So let me go over and grab a little broth out of my pot here. All right, I'm going to fill it up. And the 1-inch headspace is right at this lip right here. So after you get it filled up to that 1-inch headspace, you need to do what they call debubble. And they make debubbling tools, and I have it laying around here somewhere. I don't know what I did with it. But you can also use anything that's not metallic. And if you use something metallic, make sure that you are not scoring the jars or anything that they could break. You can also use a chopstick. So debubbling gets any air pockets out. So you just want to get down in there and give it a little mix, go down in the middle a little bit. And then after you debubble, you may have to add a little more broth because now you've made more space by getting those air pockets out of there. This is a really important step. This is all about food safety here, doing the debubbling and filling to the proper headspace also. If you don't get the proper headspace, once you put it in the pressure canner, what that does is it heats it up, and the air will come up and go out from under the lid that you put on, because you only put it on finger tight, and it will form a vacuum in the jar by expelling all of the air that's in the jar. So you don't want air trapped down in the jar, because if you have too much air in your jar, you have an environment where bacteria can grow, and we don't want that. All right, so we have our broth in. The last step is another safety step to make sure that your jars are going to seal properly. You have to make sure that the rims are clean, and I just use white vinegar and a cloth, a little paper towel, and you just wipe around the rim of the jar, especially if you're using anything that has a fat, like a meat, which we just did. And this, by doing this also, you're checking that jar for any nicks or anything. These are brand new jars. Hopefully we don't have that. So after we do that, I'm gonna place my lid on. I'm gonna bring my ring place my ring on, and finger tight only. Finger tight only. And then this will go into the canner. I've got my canner set for 75 minutes because we're doing a pint. If we were doing a quart, we'd be doing 90 minutes. And the reason we go that long is because there's meat in here. If it was just vegetables, it would be much less time. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. I'm going to fill up the rest of my jars. I'll bring you back later. Bye. So we're back at the canner. I got everything put in the jars. I placed them in my canner. I have a precise digital precise canner, and it is set to pressure can. So it warms the jars. You take the jars out, you fill the jars up, you place it back in the canner, and you put the lid on. And you put the latch down. Okay, so now we're ready to start the process. So we just hit the advance button. I've already set it for 75 minutes, so it knows what I want. So we hit that, it starts heating. When it gets up to temperature for what I want to do, it will start to push steam out of here. After it pushes the steam out for 10 minutes, it will beep at me and I will put the weight on. And then that's when the 75 minutes timer starts to go. After 75 minutes, it'll beep at me again to tell me it's done, and then it will go into a cooling phase. This can take up to an hour, maybe even longer, and you cannot rush it. It has to do it in its own time. Otherwise, you have a risk of breaking jars, not getting proper seals, and siphoning when some of your liquids come out into the water inside the pot. So we don't want that. So it has to do a natural cool down. And even at that, when it's time to open it up, you open it up and you just put the lid ajar for 10-15 minutes. And we don't want to shock it. If the air conditioning's on in the house or whatever, we don't want to shock those jars. Let them cool down naturally. Then you bring it out. And when I get to that point, I'll bring you back. Bye.